Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the first of hopefully many well-being sessions that we'll be hosting. My name is Priya Cima, and I'm the counselor at Sunmark School. Thank you, everyone, for joining us this morning, and I hope I hope I'll be able to answer all of your questions. I know that a lot of you did send in questions prior to the session starting, and thank you for that. Some of those questions, however, were very real concerns regarding safety and hygiene. And those were addressed yesterday in a town hall session that our principal did. And I hope, and for those of you who weren't able to attend that, you will find a link to that on our Facebook page. And of course, we have all of the documentation on our website as well as on the parent BLE that you can look through. And these are also being sent out to the parents as and when they're developed, just to give further details on the safety measures we're taking. So this morning, today, we will be focusing primarily on well-being and emotional well-being, social and emotional well-being, and our children, the students, and how we can recognize the different emotions and behaviors that we may and may not, see immediately, or maybe even coming down the road in the future. This session and the ongoing series will focus on this aspect, the well-being aspect, the emotional well-being aspect. So any questions you have pertaining to that, I am very pleased to answer and happy to answer and discuss with you. Now, we all know that the WHO and many international bodies, specialists, have already, sort of said and have advised and recommended that we provide as strong a support in mental health as possible to all adults as well as children. And what's more important than providing that for our children, particularly now in this situation, and as a consequence of this global health crisis, the WHO has very clearly said that mental health should be a focus. And the thing about it is that this is something that we do have control over. This is something that we can help our children with. It just takes a little bit of information, some awareness, some guidance, and we can actually support and help our children in this area specifically before it actually becomes anything more bigger or more serious that we might have to manage. So to that end, that was the objective of our parent sessions and having them with you in order to provide that support, to provide some information, to provide the beginning of some thinking along those lines in terms of how to support your children. We do our part. We are, we're all caretakers of the next generation, and it's important to be able to know how to provide them with that support. Now, just in terms of today's agenda and the session today, what I'd like to really cover is the signs to identify in terms of requirements or needs from the students and children, what children can be going through, feeling, and how that translates into their behavior, how they are responding and reacting to the different situations that they're in. Of course, how we can help them, which is the most important part. And also, how do we help ourselves? Because if parents aren't able to help themselves and support and manage their own fears and anxieties, then it becomes all that much more challenging to help our children. Now, these are some of the examples, and by no means limited to this, in terms of what you might have or what you might find your child saying. There's a lot of students and children who are extremely excited to come back to school, and they're excited to see their friends, they're excited to see their teachers, they're excited to get back into the swing of things and sort of get back into their activities and their sports, some of which of course would be limited, but they are in general excited and happy to be able to sort of go back into some sort of a routine and structure in their lives. And then of course you have children who will be expressing their fears and their anxieties, and that they're going to say that they're too scared or and some of them will be comfortable enough to actually express that, and others will express it in different ways. By they'll express their anxiety by saying, I don't want to leave. I don't want to leave you at home. I don't want you to go to work. I'm worried. I'm not sure if I'll be safe. I'm not sure if you'll be safe. They're wondering if the family itself is safe and if it's safe to go out. All of the different news and all of the different media that our children and we ourselves have been exposed to during the last few months has allowed this buildup of anxiety and uncertainty. And, this is something that we've learned how to manage, and it's sort of become the new norm to learn how to manage this through information and through sourcing as much information and knowledge as possible on the topics. And of course, following the different guidelines and regulations and advice that we've been given by the health specialists and how to be safe. But it still doesn't take away from, the fact that this is a different way of normal for all of us, and especially for the children. Now, one of the things that we should remember during this time is that during the time when we were, doing effectively, we were doing remote learning, when we were, following stay-at-home guidelines, there are a lot of different, I would say losses that our children might have faced. One of them being routine, in terms of, they're waking up, going to school, getting ready, seeing their friends, having classes at specific times, doing their activities. Routine and structure were very much part of a child's life and are very important to a child's life because it allows them to feel a sense of security, it allows them to feel a sense of safety and belonging as well. And this familiar routine and structure was something that was unfortunate during this time was broken down a little bit, and a new routine and structure was put in its place for that time. However, this is considered to be somewhat of a loss, especially for the child. They will feel it as a loss. Friendship, of course, we've all seen that, and primarily because friendship is something that they all depended on. It's a social interaction, a feeling of connectedness. This brings forward a lot of positive emotions and good feelings in anyone, and more so for children, for students, ranging the ages through secondary. As they're developing and as they're developing their groups, they feel this, this strength of relationships is something that they really depend on. Social interaction, these are things that they also felt a loss on. Now, of course, opportunity as well, in terms of perhaps your child was about to do a play, or they were about to run a race or compete in a sporting event, and these are things that also got stopped during that period. So this is also another loss that they felt. And of course, freedom. And this pertains to, again, children ranging from all the way through secondary, but I would say more so the teenagers who are a little bit older, where they've just started to feel that sense of freedom, where they've just started to feel sort of that sense of independence and that sense of who they are and that they're their own person. And then, of course, they were made to stay at home and stay with the family and not go out and not be able to do, a whole slew of things which they were allowed to do on their own independently before. And that's, these are some of the main losses that children would have faced during this period. And, this is something that they would have been trying to overcome. And it's something that they're still continuing to overcome as they go into this new period of returning back to school, but not in exactly the same way that they've been used to over the years. So having said that, some of the emotions and behaviors that they could be expressing, and I need to qualify something here before I go further. Now, you might see your children expressing some of these emotions directly. I mean, you might have, children who are just getting angry for no reason, who are showing their fear and expressing their fear and uncertainty, who are expressing their sadness by crying, who are expressing their anxiety by not wanting to do certain things. These are very straightforward, obvious expressions of these emotions that are easy to pick up. But you might also see children who are not expressing them for now, who are simply just very excited, simply super happy to be going back to school. And however, they might still be feeling some of these emotions, underlying emotions, and they might come out a little bit later. Now, a lot of the studies and the research say that, the impact of mental health is not necessarily obvious immediately, and more so for children. So, for adults and for children, but with children, sometimes they're just not able to express it immediately. They're just not able to, they don't know how to express it, obviously. So we might actually find that some of these emotions and some of these behaviors start to manifest down the road. So these are some things that we need to be able to look out for so that we can actually nip them in the bud, so to speak, so we can actually help and support our children right from the get-go, right from the beginning, so it doesn't build into anything or fester into anything that could be more damaging to them later on. So one of the things that I would suggest and recommend is to really keep an ear out, an eye out, to make sure that you are observing your child, make sure that you're looking for some of the signs and making sure that you address those signs as you see them. Now, as I said, anger, fear, uncertainty, sadness, and anxiety, these are things that are, some can be obviously expressed, and some of them can manifest in different ways. And you can find, your child feeling excessively tired or fatigued, wanting to sleep all the time, trying to escape reality, so to speak, in that way. Sometimes we find that there's erratic or changed behavior with children. So they're not reacting or responding as they normally would to family situations, or even within relationships with their siblings or with you as parents, or even with extended family. Sometimes there's, you'll see that kids will start to have an increase in physical complaints and body aches. They'll come to you with, my wrist is hurting, I can't move it, my leg is hurting, my arm, I have headaches, and it's a way for a child to try and get attention. It's a way for your child to try and get focus on them, because they're trying to say that they're not, that they aren't unhappy. They're trying to say that there is something going on, that they're not feeling comfortable. However, they're not maybe able to express it or articulate it using the words that we would expect them to. You could have children who show excessive worry. So, every time you go out of the house, they're scared, and they keep calling on the phone saying, where are you? What time are you back? When will you be back? And then if you're 5 minutes late, they call you again. You have children who show excessive worry for their siblings, for their extended family members. And again, this is normal because of all of the different exposure that they've had to the requirements to being safe, which is something very different from what they've known before. They might have started to build this sense of worry that if they're not safe, then something bad will happen. Some children, of course, react to it in such a way that they sort of just cut themselves off completely, sort of thinking that if I'm not part of anything, then nothing can affect me. So they start to isolate themselves. They don't go out to play. They don't interact with their friends or their siblings or with family members. They leave, they tend to stay by themselves. And this is something that is, it needs to be carefully watched, because especially when it comes to teenagers who you are used to maybe having, who are with their headphones and listening to music and are always in their rooms reading a book or online, it might seem like, oh, that's just normal. This is what they've always been doing. But it's important to keep an eye out to make sure that it isn't excessive, that it's not more than normal. And this is something that is easy to also lose sight of, because we don't tend to monitor in terms of time and hours. We tend to monitor in terms of activities a lot of times. So it's important to make sure that we also keep an eye out to say, okay, have they spent the last 8 hours, in their room by themselves, not talking to anyone, not seeing anyone, not even their friends? So this is when we start to, have to look closer at their behaviors and see where it's coming from. Some children, you'll find that they, they just tend to have very, very quick and mood changes, where one minute they're happy and they're excited and they're jumping up and down about something, and the next they're crying and they're sad, or they're angry and throwing a tantrum. And sometimes it feels like there's no reason for these mood changes. No, there is no obvious reason for these mood changes, but the reason could be that they're experiencing high levels of anxiety or fear, and that they're just not able to, they're not able to express it. So their moods are constantly changing. Again, with children, as they go through development, we see that there's different stages that they go through. And with teenagers, yes, mood changes are a part of their normal development. But here I'm talking about noticing something that is more excessive, something that is out of that norm. And it's sometimes, as I said, it is difficult when you have a child going through that stage right now, because all of the different developmental behaviors could be exaggerated because of the because of the situation as well. So it's really about tempering the responses that we have to them. It's about making sure we understand where they're coming from. There are some families who are going through periods of grief and bereavement, and it is also important to make sure that the child or the children within the family are also helped and supported during that period. A lot of times, unfortunately, what happens is, because it is a family situation, the adults are themselves going through a difficult situation. It's difficult to, it becomes challenging to support children as well. But this is, in these situations, it's then important to seek help. It's important to reach out to friends and other family members, or even professional help, to be able to provide that support for the child and for yourselves. There could be a change in habits, eating habits, exercising habits, change in habits in terms of sleeping, change in habits in terms of the way they behave as well, and their likes and dislikes. All of these could be reflective of, yes, normal development, but it could also be reflective of certain negative emotions that they're going through. But it's a matter of gauging, as a parent, as a caretaker, what is normal and what is excessive for your child. And of course, decreased social and academic functioning, which, these, as I mentioned earlier when I first started, some of these behaviors, some of these emotions don't necessarily manifest right away. They could actually manifest down the road. They could manifest in a few weeks, in a month, in 2 months. So what we're trying to do here is really to be more aware and to be more observant of our children, and to be able to help them and guide them in case we do notice any of these. Now, how can we help them? And I guess this is the meat of today's session, so to speak. This is the actual heart of the session, which is, how do we actually help our children? Now, one of the first things that is important for any child through any developmental stage and into adulthood really is to have a sense of belonging. And this is something that we do on many different levels. We do it from a home family life level, we do it from a school level, we do it from their activities and their friendships and their relationships. So it's really about promoting and creating that sense of belonging. It's making sure that your child feels connected, that they feel connected to their environment, because that is where they build and develop their identification from. That is where they develop trust in themselves. That is where they build their self-confidence and self-esteem. So it's important to make sure that your home environment, your family environment, your, any of the different areas that you believe will influence and impact your child are as peaceful and positive as possible. And I say as possible because obviously, being positive and peaceful all the time is not, it's simply not something that's possible. So as much as possible, but it's more than that, it's about creating a sense of belonging for that child. So making sure that that child understands that they are part of something bigger, something that is loving and supportive for them. Ensuring a positive and safe environment. Now, we can do that in many different ways, of course, and we do that from an emotional and psychological mental health perspective. But in this situation, one of the things that we can do from a very practical and logical perspective is to make sure that we speak to our children about safety and hygiene and make them understand that that is part of making sure that they are in a safe environment. Now, here it's really about the different guidelines and different measures that have been put in place. They're all aware at this point in time, just by going out of the home, that there are certain safety measures that they need to adhere to. And the same goes for in school as well. So even with returning to school, it's important that we re-emphasize to the child as much as possible that there are certain safety measures that they will have to follow for their own safety and for their friends' safety, for the community's safety, and that it is part of their responsibility to do their part as well. So it's about promoting those kind of behaviors in regards to social distancing and in regards to wearing masks, etc., and all of the other safety and hygiene measures that that have been put in place across the board. Encouraging communication, which sort of underlies all of the other aspects and all of the other ways you can help your child. It's important to listen. It's important to listen and listen some more. And it's never enough. It's important to make sure that you have the time, that you make the time to listen to your child. It's important to make sure that you actively listen to them, that you're not ignoring any, or you're not dismissing any of their concerns because they're repeating them so much. Excuse me. So it's important to listen to them as much as possible. It's important to hear what they're saying and to address the concerns that they have. Help them rebuild relationships and friendships. Now, friendships could have been lost or changed during this period. And, during this time where they've had to stay home and they haven't seen their friends physically, they could have made new friends, sort of maybe grown distant from their old friends. So it's important to also speak to them about this, to have conversations around what these friendships mean to them, what these relationships mean to them, what it means to them about returning to school and seeing their friends again, sort of celebrate that aspect of it, but also to ask them what it means to them to be able to rebuild old friendships and maybe to sort of, see their new friends that they found online during the stay-at-home period, where they'll be able to see them face to face. So they're building new relationships as well. So again, this is really, this sense of connectedness that comes from relationship building and friendships is something that will help them to feel a sense of belonging, and it helps them to feel positive as well. Now, creating a calm space, and sometimes I understand as caretakers and parents, it's difficult. It can be challenging, especially when you yourself have a lot of concerns and uncertainty regarding how things are going forward. However, again, it's not wrong to talk to your child about your own concerns, but it's really about making sure that they feel at peace and that they feel confident as well. And a way to do this is to really, again, talk to them. It's to give them that space to express their concerns, to express their and in whatever form or way that those concerns come out. As I said, it could come out as anger, it could come out as sadness, it could come out as anxiety, it could come out as mood changes, but it's really about addressing it and saying, yes, come sit down with me, let's talk about this. Now, when we feel as caretakers, when sometimes parents can feel frustrated, they can feel a sense of their own stress and concern, and can respond with impatience, and that's understandable. You know, different people will express their stress in different ways, but this again, these points are there to sort of you know, there's sort of a keep in mind set of points, which means, yes, when you do feel that sense of impatience and frustration, it's really about calming yourself down as well. And sometimes when you consciously take a tone of voice that is softer, you calm yourself down. And that actually helps in relation to speaking with the child, picking your battles. Again, as I mentioned, there might be children who tend to, you know, isolate themselves. And yes, that can get frustrating. It can get challenging as well as in terms of family dynamics, but it's important to allow a child to express their concerns. And if this is the way they're expressing their concern, okay, fine. However, address that concern as it comes. So it's not about, you know, there might be times when the child just wants to be in their room because they're reading a book, or they're watching a movie, or they're online with a friend, as opposed to isolating themselves, or, you know, sort of saying, no, I don't want to be part of the family dynamic. So it's really, we have to be aware of the situation and the behavior that's manifesting and why it's manifesting. So it's important to actually understand what it is and why are they behaving the way they're behaving. So is it because they're anxious? Is it because they're scared? Is it because, you know, for the younger ones, is it simply because they've, you know, they haven't had enough sleep, or they're hungry and they're stressed out, they're physiologically stressed out? So always look beyond that first manifestation of behavior or anger or emotion that comes out to understand where it's coming from. What is the underlying reason and trigger? Because in this situation, those underlying reasons and triggers can be very real, and if not helped and if not managed, can actually fester into something bigger. As always, and this is one thing I know that we tend to emphasize during any relationship or any interaction with children, it's important to reinforce positive behaviors, because otherwise, how will they know that they've done well? How will they know that they're doing the right thing? So when your child, you know, shows up at the dinner table and they're happy and they're, you know, they're interacting positively with the rest of the family, then yes, it's important to make sure you celebrate that. Not obviously, and not pointing it out, but however, engage with them with as much energy and positive response as possible. Helping children to help themselves is an important aspect, and especially the older ones. And, you know, there's a lot of tools and resources that have been made available online, and some of them are free, and some of them, you know, you need to dig a little deeper for, but most of them are free, actually, if you find them, and some of them are simple enough that they're just deep breathing exercises that allow children to help themselves relax. Some of them are mindfulness training, some of them are meditation training, but even things like regular exercise, you know, making sure that your children understand that they need regular sleeping times and routines, making sure that your children understand that they need to eat healthy, or, you know, having them help decide on menus and healthy eating, be part of those healthy eating decisions, so that they learn. You know, these are different tools and resources that you can actually use, and you can actually have your children use as well in terms of helping themselves. Sticking to routines has always been an important thing, and now that we're back in school, this is going to be somewhat less challenging. So, you know, this is something, again, that allows a child to feel safe and secure to feel confident in their lives, simply because, you know, routine has always been a very strong building block of development and of a child's life. Encouraging them to help others, and this is again something that, you know, we promote, because this builds empathy, this builds compassion, this allows them to feel a sense of belonging as well. And finally, encouraging good physical health. Now, this is a mainstay, of course, because, you know, as long as your eating habits are healthy, your exercises habits are healthy, your you know, your sleeping habits are healthy, this promotes physiological physical health, which of course between, you know, the mind-body connection is so strong that it, you know, it affects, one always affects the other. And we all know this already. So of course it's not enough just to help children, it's also important to be able to help ourselves. And, you know, some very obvious examples of healthy and unhealthy behaviors that, you know, as adults we also can find ourselves indulging in, unfortunately, to be able to make sure that we monitor ourselves, to be able to make sure that we're conscious of these things. I'm going to talk about the unhealthy ones first. Avoiding and withdrawing from difficult situations is something that, you know, is easy to do, especially when adults are already stressed, where we try not to see or not to do too much when it comes to even our children's behavior, because it makes us unhappy. Ignoring our child's moods and outbursts, or downplaying them, not really, you know, dismissing them, not really giving it the attention that it does require, can be very unhealthy, not only for the family life, but also for the, you know, mainly for the child and their own emotional well-being. Dwelling on negative thoughts and situations, feeling sorry for yourself is something that is it promotes, you know, it just promotes negative emotions. It promotes a sense of, you know, poor health. It's not. It is something that we need to make sure that we're aware of, that we nip in the bud. Any anger or aggression, social isolation, and of course any excessive, and finally excessive social media use to the exclusion of other responsibilities, which is something we all find very, you know, it's something that happens across the board, children as well as adults. And this is also something that we need to be careful about and monitor, because, you know, again, dependency on that can lead down dangerous paths in many different ways. Now, how do we manage all of this? Again, a sense of connectedness, a sense of having relationships, talking with friends, other parents, families, being able to discuss the situations that you find yourself in. You know, it makes you feel that you're not alone, which you are not. No parent is alone. You know, it does take a village. We are all in it together in terms of being able to support the students and the children. Exercising, eating healthy, meditation, getting adequate sleep are all the usual sort of healthy behaviors that are promoted, and we see this everywhere, but they work. As simple as it is, they work. Writing in a journal or gratitude journal, any of these practices are also things that are very simple, but have long-lasting positive consequences and impact. And, you know, things like noticing when you need a break and taking that break is important. It's important to say to yourself, I need to breathe as well, and making sure you actually do take those breaks. Paying attention to negative thoughts that occur before or after strong emotions. Again, this is a way of nipping things in the bud so that you don't go into the other side, which is dwelling on negative thoughts and situations and sort of, you know, catastrophizing and feeling sorry for yourself and making it a very big, overwhelming situation. So it's important to pay attention to these thoughts as and when they occur, not only for yourself, but also with your children. So it's all, you know, these in this situation, it's the whole, I keep saying this, nip it in the bud. What I mean to say is it's important to actually address it as and when it happens, so it doesn't build into something bigger, into something stronger that requires more attention and a lot more healing. Now, I would like to take questions, and I'm sure people will have them. These are some of the questions that we did receive. So these are things that, those were some of the questions that we did receive, and I will start off by answering that. How do I prepare my kids for the first day back since they're new to the school? Now, I understand that, you know, being new to the school is also an added sort of a stress because they will be forming new relationships. So to this, you know, again, they'll be going through the same emotional, you know, sort of different sets of emotions: uncertainty, fear, anxiety, maybe a little bit of excitement as well because it's a new school. So it's really about talking to them about it. It's about addressing their concerns, find out what it is that they're feeling. Maybe they're not feeling so anxious. Maybe they're feeling more excitement. You know, it's about preparing them for what they're going to face. So get as much information as you possibly can by reading through all of the different presentations and information packets that have been shared with the parents in regards to what the school is going to look like and what the ways of behaving will be in school, and making sure that they know this as well. So it's about giving them as much information as possible. Going back to school generates a lot of stress for the children, but also for the parents. How can we remedy this? Yes, going back to school is generating quite a bit of stress, I agree, and it's really about addressing that stress. Communication is key in this situation. Without actually finding out what it is your children are feeling, you're not going to be able to address those specific particular issues. So are they feeling fear? Are they feeling anxious? Are they feeling anger? Is it separation anxiety because they don't want to be away from you after being with you for so long at home? So what is it exactly that they're feeling? Are they feeling excitement? Are they happy to be at school? Where is the stress coming from? What is it being triggered by? Is it because they don't know what their friendships are going to be like? They don't know what it's going to be like to see their friends. They don't know what the safety measures are going to be like. So it's really important to find out and have these conversations with your children to be able to address their concerns, specifically address their concerns. I'm worried about what the impact of my children will be, seeing what school will look like now and how much the routine is different to what they are used to. Will the changes make them frightened and cause anxiety? Now, as much as possible, of course, we have tried to put things in place following the guidelines and the regulations and the safety measures, but to also make it as comfortable for the students returning as well. Now, to that end, you know, we have published and we have held sessions, and we have, you know, shared presentations and videos with you parents. And, you know, some of them might be things you might want to share with your children as well, to be able to prepare them in regards to what school will look like, to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, a little bit more easier. But having said that, it is still the school that they're used to. We're still the same. And, you know, they're still familiar with the teachers and the building itself, and they will be coming back to see their friends. Now, yes, it will be a little bit, it will be different in terms of how they'll be expected to behave, but, you know, we're hoping that, you know, the safety, that they also understand and accept that the safety measures are there for the safety of everyone. So yes, I'm not going to downplay it in terms of anxiety and stress. There will be, of course, anxiety and stress. That is normal. But again, it's about addressing it. We are happy to talk to them. We are happy to talk with them. We have different resources. All of our staff are well prepared to talk with the students in case they have any additional questions. And of course, we've tried to provide as much material as possible to you as parents that you can share with your children. Okay. Can you suggest some good meditation videos for my children? Yes, there are a few that you can find online. I don't have them off the top of my head, but I know that there are specific videos that we can find online for children, and really it depends on the age of your child as well. So you want to make sure that the video is appropriate in regards to the age of your child, because for younger children, they generally tend to use noise and story type of meditation practices, whereas for the older ones, and the young adults, they're able to follow more traditional meditation practices, and they can actually do deep breathing. Now, for the youngest children as well, there are some deep breathing exercises that can be done that'll help them in terms of alleviating anxiety and stress. With soaring temperatures and limited options available, could you recommend some activities for teenagers that do not involve screens? Yes, this is something that has been a summertime challenge for many parents in this part of the world for a long time. And it's, again, these are activities, it depends on the age of the child. It has to be age appropriate. But there's different activities, of course, that are available, and the traditional ones, the obvious traditional ones are things like puzzles and board games and all of these things. But you have to also take into account the interest of the child, and sometimes it could be as simple as maybe they want to learn a new instrument, or maybe they want to take the time to learn something different or new. There's always different activities that are available, and again, because of the nature of the climate here, there's all sorts of different camps and things like that. But it is, yes, I understand it is something that is a concern, a real concern. But I also recommend during this specific period, it's important to build that sense of belonging and safe environment for a child. It might be important, and more important even, to be able to do activities that are more family oriented. So the entire family can come together and do these activities, and they could be, as I said, they could be as simple as board games, or doing puzzles together, or cooking together, or baking together, or playing music together, working in the garage together, building something. So there's all of these different things that can be done, but as a family and as a group, and definitely eating together, of course. What about FS1 children going to school for the first time? I just started nursery. Okay. Again, there are some of these questions I will leave for you to, I would like to, the focus of the session is about emotional well-being and psychological well-being aspects of returning to school, and some of these questions can be better answered by sort of watching returning to the session that was done by the principal yesterday, and that's available on our Facebook page, and also going through the compendium and going through all of the documents that our staff have worked really hard to put together to be able to bring reassurance to the parents and students before returning. So they've been shared already, and they can be found on the different links. Okay. I think at this point we will how can I, as a parent, keep calm and control my anxiety ahead of the start of school, as I think my child can pick up on my anxieties? And this is something that we find does happen, where children will reflect, so to speak, their parents' emotions and sometimes behavior, of course, because that they're modeling. Now, in this situation, it is again important to make sure that we ourselves, as caretakers, as parents, that you also help yourselves in managing your stress and anxiety. And one of the there are many different ways of doing this. Now, of course, the most obvious way is to make sure that you are up to date and as much information as possible in terms of keeping yourself and your family safe. And of course, what the school is doing to that end as well, and making sure that you are aware of all of the different guidelines and safety measures that need to be taken. Now, having said that, that's sort of the practical side of things, and the the practical side of things, I guess the tangible side of things. On the other side of things, anxieties and fears can still continue to build up. And it's really about talking through them with your family, talking through them with other parents as well, to make sure that you understand that you're not alone in feeling this way. Because sometimes when you isolate yourself and feeling, feeling these levels of anxiety and stress, they can build up even more. And they can continue to build up until you have to take some fairly large steps to start managing them. So again, here it's important to make sure that you talk to other parents, talk to other family members, talk to your friends about your anxieties and fears. And doing that also helps to put them into perspective. Doing that also helps to prevent you from catastrophizing them, from making them seem overwhelming and big and something that you cannot handle. There's different calming techniques as well that you can use, meditative techniques, breathing exercises, these kind of things. Make sure, of course, the obvious ones, which is eating properly, getting enough exercise, sleeping properly, and sleeping the right amount of hours that you need to sleep to stay healthy. Now, in terms of actually, transferring any of these anxieties to our children, again, as I said, they do look to us for confidence. They look to us in terms of security and safety. So the first step is always to take care of the adults need to take care of themselves and make sure that they're doing the right thing in terms of taking care of themselves. The second would be to make sure that you observe your children. You make sure that you're addressing all of their concerns as well. And yes, if they are anxious, then it's important to talk them through it. There's nothing wrong in admitting that you also are stressed and that you also are concerned. However, along with admitting that, it's also important to say that you've done this, this, and this. So yes, I'm concerned, yes, I'm stressed out, but I also know, because I've read a lot, and I know that there are safety measures in place, because I'm trying to make sure to stay calm, and I've spoken to other parents, and there are other people who also are going through the same thing. It's helped me. So it's important to also make sure that we let our children know that it's, yes, anxiety and stress and uncertainty might be there, but there are also ways of helping yourselves. There's also ways of feeling better and making yourself feel better. Okay, my child finds it hard to make friends. I'm concerned that the social distancing rules make it harder for her to build friendships. Yes, this is, again, it's a real question in terms of, social connectedness and building relationships, which are an important part of development for a child. Now, in terms of social distancing, in terms of the way the safety measures have been set up, obviously there are certain elements to it where it will allow for children to continue to build their relationships and stay connected to one another. In terms of, making new friends, there are different ways of doing that. This has happened online now and using technology, and a lot of the children are a lot more flexible, I would say, in terms of these new ways of living than adults can be. Our staff is also well prepared in terms of monitoring and observing children in situations like this, to make sure that they're not feeling isolated, that they're not feeling left alone, so to speak. Again, it's important to speak to your child about this. It's important to make sure that you you speak to them and they understand that there are certain social distancing rules that will be put in place, safety measures that are put in place, and that might be difficult to be able to go sit with their best friend. They might have to find other ways, and maybe ask them, what are some of the ways you think that you could interact with your friends this semester, this term, this year? What are some of the ways you think might be fun to do things with your friends? So maybe, suggest things like, how about a friendship club with a group of your friends where you meet every day or every 2 days at a certain time online, and you hang out for half an hour or 20 minutes or whatever, the time frame that they have. So these are different activities or different things that you can do and suggest and talk through with your child in terms of helping them make new friends, to reignite old friendships as well, and rebuild friendships. Okay. I think we've just run through the questions. As I said, some of the questions here are regarding the different safety measures and hygiene measures that we've put in place, and these can be answered by watching again our principal's video that was shared yesterday on our Facebook page, but also by going through the compendium. Okay. Right, okay. If there are any, well, if you have any more questions, please feel free to either to contact the school, and if you have any questions specifically regarding any of this, the sessions that we do, we will provide you. We'll be connected to you directly, and then we'll be able to answer it through email. Okay. Right. Well, thank you, everyone, and I hope you found the session useful. We will be having a second, so we will be doing these sessions as an ongoing effort on our part to help parents and support parents during this time, and also for the future. So we will be touching on various different topics in emotional well-being and psychological well-being for parents as well as for their children, and how to manage those aspects with their children. And I hope you join me for the future sessions as well. Thank you.